Why did Melissa Gilbert stay silent all these years about Dean Butler? And why is she finally speaking now? Because of what she just revealed, no one saw it coming. Not her longtime fans, and definitely not those who believed in the perfect love story of Laura and Almanzo. Was Dean the love of her life? Was their chemistry real, or was it all for a show? And what has Melissa been holding back for decades? Stay to the end, because once you hear what she finally revealed, you may never see that iconic TV romance the same way again. The show and the romance everyone believed if you grew up watching Little House on the Prairie. You most definitely know Melissa Gilbert. Most people remember her for her on-screen romantic relationship with Dean Butler. And yeah, let's be honest, that role alone was enough to make her unforgettable. People couldn't stop talking about how good the show was. Little House on the Prairie was about the Ingalls family, who lived in a small wooden house way out in the countryside. They didn't have much money, but they had each other, and that made them rich in a different way. However, life wasn't always easy for them. Sometimes there were storms, sickness, or tough winters. But they never gave up. They helped each other, cared for their neighbors, and always tried to do what was right. At the center of the story was Laura Ingalls, a little girl with a big heart and a lot of curiosity. She didn't have fancy toys or a phone, but she had adventure, love, and family. And that made her story special. People loved the show because it reminded them of what matters, like family, kindness, and never giving up, even when life gets hard. Laura was played by the young actress Melissa Gilbert. She was just about 10 years old at the time she started playing the role. And the truth is, people who watched her grow up on screen felt like they knew her. They watched her every week laugh, cry, and learn her lessons in life. As she grew older, the show allowed her character to grow as well. Laura started to attend school and help her family with chores, eventually falling in love. Now, here's where things started to get interesting. In came actor Dean Butler for the series as Almanzo Wilder. He was the one Laura fell in love with. The moment Dean hit the screens, something clicked in the fans' minds immediately. He had this calm, kind, and strong charisma about him, like someone you could trust. And the moment Laura met Almanzo for the very first time, it was as if you could feel the moment her heart skipped a beat. That is how real their connection looked. Fans didn't just watch Laura and Almanzo fall in love. They believed them. Their chemistry felt natural, so real that everyone started asking if they were in love off-screen too. The wedding scenes and the way he looked in her felt so real, you would have sworn on your life it was more than acting. Everyone believed that there was something cooking behind the camera. Coupled with the fact that those periods were when celebrities weren't big on social media, they hardly used to share much online. No Instagram stories, no behind-the-scenes clips that could satisfy our curiosity, just episodes and a few interviews here and there in the magazines. And that mystery made every other thing even more magical. Fans hoped Melissa and Dean were secretly dating. Meanwhile, Melissa and Dean never talked about their connection during the show. For years, they kept mum. They did not say anything to confirm or deny. It's like they just left it to our imaginations. And guess what? It worked because the imaginations of the fans went more than ultra-wild. Behind the sweet romance scenes, no one knows what goes on. Were they close friends? Or did they have feelings for each other? Or was it all just really good acting? Fans are left to wonder for decades. Still, the love story of Laura and Almanzo became one of the biggest parts of the show. It gave the series heart. It gave fans hope. And it made Melissa Gilbert and Dean Butler household names. People tuned in not just to watch Prairie life, but to watch that romance bloom. But sometimes what we see on TV isn't exactly how things were in real life. And as time passed, the questions never stopped. What was going on between Melissa and Dean behind the scenes? Why didn't they ever open up about it? And most of all, what was the truth? Well, after years of silence, Melissa is finally ready to speak. But before we dive into the truth about her and Dean, we need to go back. Because Melissa Gilbert's journey didn't start on the Prairie. Her life before Little House on the Prairie was full of twists and turns. She didn't grow up on a farm, and she didn't come from a simple life like Laura Ingalls. Her story is completely different. Her road to becoming a TV star started much earlier, and it wasn't always easy. So now, let's step away from the prairie fields and take a look at the little girl behind the famous braids and sunbonnet that we fell in love with, because understanding her shed a whole new light on her relationship with Dean Butler. From ordinary girl to prairie star before Melissa Gilbert became a household name or the girl with the famous braids, she was just a little girl born May 8th, 1964, in Los Angeles, California. She was adopted by actor and comedian Paul Gilbert and his wife Barbara Crane, a dancer and actress, just a day after she was born. From that moment on, Melissa became part of showbiz family, but things weren't always smooth. Even though she had loving parents, her early childhood was filled with pressure and confusion, especially when it came to understanding her place in a family of performers. Paul Gilbert, her adoptive father, was warm and funny. He often took Melissa with him to auditions and shows. She saw cameras, lights, and actors when she was just a toddler. To her, the world of television was normal. It was just part of life. And even though at that time she didn't know what was happening, well, she already was on her path to fame. When she turned 7 years old, she was doing commercials. Her natural charm made her stand out. She wasn't a loud kid or a flashy kid. She was real. Casting agents loved her expressive eyes and how she could say lines without really trying. It wasn't long before her first television gigs came along. She did a few commercials, small roles honestly, just enough to be noticed. At 9, Melissa went to an audition that would change her life forever. Laura Ingalls was about to come alive with Melissa. The producers were looking for someone special, someone who wouldn't just act, but carry the heart of the show. But what sealed the deal was her screen test with the show's star and producer, Michael Landon. Michael wasn't just the leading man on the show. He played Charles Ingalls, Laura's kind and hardworking father. Off-screen, he proved even more important to Melissa. From that very first day that they met, Michael became a father figure in her life. He saw something in her that no one else did. He guided her, he protected her, and he treated her like family. Melissa would go on later and say that Michael filled the role of father in her life, especially after her adoptive parents divorced and her relationship with her real father became distant. But their bond didn't end when the cameras stopped rolling. Michael took Melissa into his real family. She'd spend time with his children, especially his daughter Leslie. They would have sleepovers, share secrets, and become like sisters. Melissa said the Landon household was a second homemade place where she felt loved and accepted. And for a young girl in Hollywood, that meant everything. Melissa's real life wasn't always easy. Eventually, her parents got divorced, and she did struggle between two worlds, the glamorous life of a child star and the quiet, confusing emotions of a little girl trying to understand who she was. But Michael was always there whenever she needed any advice, whenever she felt lost, at any given moment when she did not know what lay ahead in life. That kind of relationship left an indelible mark on Melissa. Even after all these years, Melissa refers to Michael as one of the most important men in her life. His belief in her gave her the strength to believe in herself. That set became her second home, where she had strong friendships with her co-stars, like Allison Arngrim, who played Nellie Olson, and shared years of laughter and learning with them. These bonds helped her grow, not only as an actress, but as a person too. By the time she was in her teens, Melissa had already spent years on Little House on the Prairie. She had filmed emotional scenes, handled tough subjects, and carried the show through major storylines. She had learned how to manage fame, how to take criticism, and how to keep her feet on the ground. But the biggest change came when the show introduced a new character, Almanzo Wilder. Melissa was growing up, and so was Laura. It was time for her character to experience first love, and with that came the arrival of Dean Butler. As Dean stepped onto the set, everything shifted. Their characters, Laura and Almanzo, became the show's most beloved couple. The chemistry was obvious, and fans couldn't help but fall in love with their story. But behind the scenes, Melissa was still trying to figure out what it meant to act out a romance, and what it meant when people started wondering if the romance was real. What did Melissa know about love at that age? Was she acting or feeling something real? And how did pretending to fall in love change her forever? The struggles behind the romantic scenes. The world saw a sweet, brave, wide-eyed girl with two braids running across open fields in slow motion. But in reality, Melissa was just a young girl growing up in front of millions, and it wasn't always easy. At first, it was fun.